If we want to perform some IDS analysis, we've got to go to IDS application folder, select IDS analyzer application and run it. Here is the main window application with 1, 2, 3 and 4 tabs. Within the last one we will find the same interface as the IDS installer, so we don't have anything to say more about it. And within the status bar we see that the application is waiting for the definition of output folder path and the selection of files to analyze. We first go to main settings tab, and within it we go to global settings. First of all we are going to choose the input main folder, son, inputs mono, choose. We need to define the output folder path, so I click on choose whether it's main folder, and I will use lep subfolder. And next time I want to refine the same configuration, the same default global settings, so I update preference files. To see if the preference files has been updated, I'll go to the Finder, to the Home folder within IDS data distribution with prefs IDS analyzer, and within it I can see that now we've got son inputs mono for the inputs files main folder, and lep as a subfolder IDS profile CSV for results main folder path. So our modification have been taken into account. We can go back to the main window of the application. Now I can also choose to create a log file after the analysis process, and the log file name obeys the following rules: log, then a personal prefix, for instance test. I have to validate it, and I can add the date and the time. I just add the date. Now I have to check this button in order to be sure that the log file will be created. Another option is to create an analysis subfolder within which we will find all the analysis products, which is a rather safe option to adopt, I think. So the subfolder name rule is prefix, for instance test, and I validate my choice, and we can add a mapping name, date and event time. So I just add mapping name, date, and I've validated the choice of test as prefix. In order to be sure that the analysis folder will be created and used, I've got to check the button. Here's the radio button. And now I still have to define the files to analyze, but before I'm going to have a look on mappings to use tab. Within it, for each defined sampling frequency, I've got the definition of the default mapping. I will use the 44.1 kHz sampling frequency, but I just want to perform lab analysis, so I've changed the default mapping here. I can also change another one from octave, for instance. And if I want to refine the same configuration for the default mappings, I've got to update the preference files. If I go back to the home folder, I've got pref IDS analyzer, and within it I still have the same inputs files main folder and results main folder, but now I can see that the default folder is lep for the first frequency and octave for the third one, so my changes have been taken into account. I can go back to the main window application, and now I will have a look on files to analyze this tab, and within it I click on add files button. I choose to add all of them, but in fact I don't want to use this one, so I've selected its line and I click on remove selection. I don't want also to use the 3 files selected, so I click again on remove selection after having selected the unwanted files. I can also decide that the remaining files are not the one I want to analyze and remove all of them. Once there's no files or no more files within the selection, it's impossible to launch analysis, as notably the launch analysis button is deactivated. So I have to add files, and I will choose these ones. Now I've got my 4 files to analyze, and within the status bar I see that we've got the information that web files were added and no more needed, so we can launch the analysis as the launch analysis button is activated. But before, let's consider the information available for each file. We've got the original web file name, then we've got the alias, which will be used as name for the IDS profile files. We've got the information about the sampling rate, the channel's number, the duration in seconds, and the mapping frequency, which will be used for the analysis. I want to change the alias, so for first one, I suppress the prefix and validate my choice by clicking on change alias. I do the same modification for the other files. Third one, and last one. And now I've got 4 new aliases, the same mapping, frequency mapping, but if I want to, for instance, analyze this one with another mapping, I just have to go to the pop-up menu here and, for instance, choose Octave and validate change mapping. For this demonstration, I would like to use only LEP, so I'll change again the mapping. I've got 4 files with each definition, and each mapping definition is equal to LEP, so now we can perform the analysis. I just have to click on launch analysis button. It has opened a Finder window, and within it we have just seen that a new subfolder has been created with test, LEP, and the date. And this subfolder is within LEP subfolder, within IDS profile CSV subfolder, within IDS results folder. If we go within this analysis folder, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 IDS profiles with the .ids.csv extension and 1 log file. We first have a look on log file. We've got the following information: the date, the time, the number of processed files. For each processed file, 1 line with the original web file name and the mapping used for the analysis. At the end, we've got the information about the time necessary to perform all the analysis. So all 4 analyses have been performed within 22.68 seconds. On the main window within the status bar, we've got the same information. Now I don't need anymore the log file, and I'm now looking at the first IDS profile. As we also have as final extension .csv, these files can be opened using OpenOffice or Excel if available. If I go to the information window, I'm going to choose TextEdit as a default application. I'll apply the modification for all files because using TextEdit is lighter and simpler and faster. So now we can open an IDS profile, for instance this one, and access to its contents and even be able to make some modification. It's not a good idea to make a modification by hand. What can be done also is to have a look on the aperture, and we then see that we've got the information about the file's location, the web file location that says path and the original name, that this web file is a monophonic file. We've got the information about the samples number. We've got the sampling rate, which is 44.1 kHz. We've got the dynamic in bits, we see that SLEP frequency mapping has been used for the analysis using size whose filter size is 44,263 samples. Then we've got the information about the IDS profile on only one column because we've got a monophonic file, and one line per subband with information about the left and right limits, for instance 0 and 50 Hz for the first subband, and the relative weight in relative dB. At the end, we've got the information about the mean channel energy in full scale dB. And if we switch from profile to profile, we see that we've got some rather similar information for each profile. Okay. Now we can go back to the IDS main window. And as I consider that this demonstration is finished and I won't perform any more analysis, I just have to quit the application by clicking on quit button.